Let's do this.
Thank you. I needed this energy today.
I saw you on my calendar. Like I literally woke up. I'm like, I cannot wait. I'm going to have like a great day. I'm going to hang out with Jamie. I'm going to hang out with Lindsay Manning after this. I'm looking for houses for myself. It's going to be a great day. So we're good.
I'm Jamie O'Kane, CPA, Small Business Advanced Tax Planning and Compliance Extraordinaire. And this is the Abundant Beans Podcast, the podcast that takes my love for learning what makes people tick while digging into the good, bad, and ugly of small business ownership. We strive to give you the insight that only those in the trenches of being and working with entrepreneurs can provide.
We're welcoming back to the podcast today our Jared Frost. He's the owner and founder of Pebble Group Real Estate Sales team, focusing on helping families find peace and fulfillment in their lives by providing the highest quality real estate transaction experience in the market. And that's all of that I'm reading. This is actually your bio from the last time we did that.
It sounded a little familiar, yeah.
Yeah, that was July 2nd.
It hasn't changed much in July, so we're good.
So this is Jared's second time. We'll drop the last his last episode in the comments. So if you want to go back and listen to all the backstory and all that, we're not going to do that again.
How to use rocket science to build a business, I think was the title, right?
I love that. It's so good. My producer Steven over here, he comes up with all of those titles, and half the time I'm
good job, Steven.
You're cracking me up.
Yeah.
All right. So, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Wow. I feel like my biggest pet peeve changes on a daily basis. It's like, what's my biggest pet peeve today?
Yeah. What is your biggest pet peeve today?
Today my biggest pet peeve are, I would say, people. So there's that phrase, "Fake it till you make it," right? I think there's a difference between faking it till you make it and misrepresenting yourself until you make it.
I like that.
I would say misrepresentation until you make it is not the way to go. Faking until you make it, probably the way to go.
Yeah, I think those are totally different things.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah, no names or whatever, but had an appointment this morning, and we're doing this podcast to help entrepreneurs and small business owners and people get their stuff up and running.
This is what we love to do.
Love to do it, and ran into a new real estate broker kind of 2 days into the industry, very excited to kind of go.
Just love a little baby real estate broker.
And it's so exciting. The energy is just incredible and just totally clueless. And, not that I'm the be all end all of Denver real estate, but I've been doing this a little bit. And she just misrepresented herself in such a bad way.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, you're going to need some help.
Daily pet peeve. Yeah. It's hard, and as we go into, for our firm, as we go into a new niche,
right.
People ask us all the time, how many veterinary practices do you have? I'm like, full disclosure, I have 3.
Yeah.
And it's great, and I'm loving it, and I'm happy I picked this niche, but I'm not going to pretend like I know more than I do, but I'm going to figure it out.
And what's wrong with being the first, right?
Everybody starts somewhere.
Start somewhere. Oh, by the way, here are my references.
But I've been working with businesses for the last 18, almost 2 decades.
You know what you're doing.
I do.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So what's the scoop on the Denver real estate market?
What's the scoop on the Denver real estate market?
I'm going to get comfy because this is going to be a good one.
Well, I'm looking for a house for myself, and now I can really empathize, what some of my clients are going through.
Your lack of inventory?
Yeah, real lack of inventory. So it's actually really interesting what we've seen over the last 6 months. So I think, because when we recorded our last podcast, it was July, and we were right in the middle of this kind of new supply, and we were you were asking questions about price reductions and price decreases, and we're like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. All that's totally reversed. So what happened was, for about 18 months there, from end of 2018 until actually prior, kind of halfway through 2018, through pretty much all of last year, we had about 30 or 40% more supply on the market than what we had the last 2 years.
Oh, wow.
What we've seen over the last 6 months, though, is that new listings have not come on the market as quickly as they have over the last 5 or 10 years. And with interest rates now back below 4%, and people kind of expecting to be out in the winter to get better pricing, we've seen an increased purchase activity in December and January. At the same time, new listings aren't coming on the market. So all that supply that we had is now gone. And we're actually now undersupplied on back to where we were kind of in 2016 and 2017, while you have more people in town. So I went out this weekend. I'm personally looking for a spot, right around median prices and stuff like that.
Bright. You're very brave.
Who's
your agent though?
So I'm actually using it as an opportunity to train one of my guys. So okay. I don't want to negotiate my own deal. So I'm going to train someone to do it for me. But it was really interesting. This weekend we had 2 blizzards in Denver, and I put in an offer on a house that I really liked. I thought it was a little bit overpriced, and I went in at list because why not? And there were already 4 offers on it, and it traded 5% over list, and I already thought it was 5% overpriced at list. So it's going to be a very interesting 6 months. That's for sure. If you have property to sell it now, because it will not probably sell in the second half of the year as the election comes up.
But where are they going to live?
Well, I mean, you sell that's a good question. But like if you're downsizing, right? If your kids are going off to college in May or June and like you're thinking, well, do we wait or whatever, not telling you to kick your kids out of home and send them off to college early, but if you're trying
put them on the couch for a couple months.
Yeah, because I do think that once you approach the election and once August hits, you always see a seasonal slowdown anyway. And I think with the general coming up, and especially because I would assume, based on the rhetoric already, it's going to be a pretty contentious general that I just think people are not going to want to stress out about houses. So
yeah, I think it's interesting what we see with the elections around in the tax world, and then also like with the big tax legislations, like people stop spending money.
Like they do.
Like so in 2000, so they passed the big Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in the end of 17, and nobody bought anything from like January to May. It was
slow.
It was real slow because people didn't have any idea what was happening with their taxes.
Right. And you probably know more about this than I do, but I would assume that obviously a lot going on with the Democratic primaries, but depending on who the Democratic nominee is, right, you could have potentially very different tax planning being proposed on the Democratic side versus what, kind of Trump has already put through.
Yeah.
That might scare a lot of people who have kind of changed their states over the last 4 or 5 years and kind of planning for some of this stuff.
I think, adding the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act has created a lot more options for planning.
Sure.
Totally. Anytime we have an overhaul, there's the ability to have more puzzle pieces, really, is what I'm seeing. And this is the biggest overhaul that's happened since I've been a professional. I mean, we've seen a couple of them, but nothing like this.
Especially for people like us, right?
Yeah, especially for the small business owners.
Qualified deductions and you're trading on your name and your own brand and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's awesome. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. And we'll see. I think, the C Corp stuff is kind of... it's supposed to be permanent. We know nothing's permanent in the tax code. Permanent, as long as, I'm sitting in this chair. At 21%, we just don't know what's going to happen.
No idea. It'll be interesting.
It's going to be really interesting.
Either way, though, Denver real estate's not going down. So you can't build it cheap enough. You can't build it fast enough. There's been a lot of talk about the apartment community starting to normalize. And you are seeing that in like the very high end, $3,000 plus for a 1-bedroom a month kind of thing. There's just been a lot of that built. So, those rents are not going up. That's probably the one soft spot in the market right now.
Well, good though.
Yeah, I mean that'll kind of put a ceiling on everything.
Yeah. I keep looking at my husband like the kids can never move out. Not here, not in Colorado.
Well, by the time they move out, you'll rent it, you'll cash flow, it'll be perfect.
We'll see. So what is the biggest change you've made in your business?
So I officially stepped out of my business last year, which is I'm stoked.
I know.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm not doing deals anymore. I'm now supported by an incredible cast of characters. Definitely characters.
Yes.
Love them to death.
Yeah, they're all sweet.
They're all very sweet, talented people. And, I got into this industry to build a network, to, be that trusted advisor, be that kind of partner to people. And now that I don't have to broker deals, it's made it a lot easier for me to do that. So quality of life starting to go up as we kind of like...
You're much happier.
Figure this out. Less stress.
Yeah, I feel like every time we talk, you're just a little bit less burdened.
I never...
With the stuff.
I spent so much of my life being in like contentious, going back to Wall Street, trading, like financial crisis, Wall Street derivatives, like... I just don't want to be yelled at anymore. Like I don't want to be yelled at. I don't want to have these contentious conversations that are just like these emotional battles. Like not kind of what I'm into. And so I'll let my agents do that. They're great at it. They don't get nearly as stressed out as I do. And now everyone's kind of doing their highest and best, and it's made us a much better team.
That's sweet. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. That's been awesome.
So your current focus has been on biz dev. How do you approach making your business grow?
That's a really good question. Yeah, well, See, it would have been really nice to know that question before. But what's my approach? Or
Yeah. So you've been spending a lot of time
out
networking and, working on biz dev and bringing more stuff in.
Yes, totally.
So what is your approach to that? So what is your process? How do you do that? What works for you guys?
Yeah.
And for you?
So I'll say the first thing that I realized is, we kind of talk about some of the self-development we're doing, right? Is I have an issue. I don't know when to stop, right? So I've actually realized and kind of learning about myself over the last 6 months that, now that I'm not doing deals, my days I don't feel like I'm doing anything, right? Because there aren't the battles, there aren't the stress is different, right? Yeah. The fire drills are a lot less. So like I've been so used to that I'm not getting that anymore. And it almost feels like at the end of the day, even if I had 5 networking appointments, I didn't do anything because there wasn't that like fire.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm working with a coach right now, Travis Baird, who's been on the podcast.
Yeah.
He's awesome. And he has me writing down all my events so that I can check them off. So at the end of the day, when I look down at my calendar, whatever, I can actually see that I did do something. It might have not been all the tasks that I have to do, or I'm not working on projects or whatever, but he did do something
awesome.
With my time. And so that's really helped to kind of reframe that thing. Because I spend a lot of time talking to podcast guests. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time doing this.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time supporting my team as they support our clients. And as I try to step out more, the more I kind of feel afloat.
Exactly.
I was like, I keep going, do you guys need anything on
what do you need from
projects?
me right now?
Like what is there anything I can, where's this? Like, and I don't want to micromanage them. So I'm just like,
it's the problem of stepping out.
Where's this at though?
And what's been interesting about that is it's almost made it that, so like, what's my approach? How do I approach it? I almost don't know how to not to do it, because now that this is my sole focus, right, to if I don't feel kind of like mentally drained at the end of the day, I just keep going, right? And so I would say last year I had my assistant count it up. We did handicap it a little bit, but I had 512 networking appointments last year.
And those are all one-on-one coffees?
All one-on-one coffee, beer, happy hour, or network event or something like that. But I averaged over 2 events per business day last year.
So your approach is one-on-ones?
100%. And calls, right? So like I am super militant about my schedule. So, and we've changed it a lot in the last 2 months, and it's actually helped out a lot. So pretty much my afternoon is entirely free 3 days a week. During the mornings, I'm militaristic about being on the phone, sending out my emails, like getting through my tasks and stuff like that. So, I think part of it is that, what's my approach? Well, my approach is now I'm doing what I actually want to do. So I'm kind of excited to get out there and meet people and figure out what to do next, right? And that's kind of been my approach, is do it until you can't do it anymore.
I love it.
I guess.
So you've really embraced the go-giver mentality.
Go-giver?
Go-giver.
Go-giver.
Have you heard that?
No.
Okay. So, and that might be Stephen Covey. But that's that go-giver, like constantly just helping people where they're at.
Well, thank you.
I literally get like 3 emails a week from you, like making intros.
Because every time,
that's amazing, because every time you talk to somebody, you're like, who's a good fit for this
That's
person?
True. Yeah.
And it's that master networking thing, that master connecting.
Yeah.
That a lot of people have a hard time like doing.
Yes.
Is that something that you had to learn how to do? Or is that something that's really natural for you?
No, actually very, very much not. So it's really crazy. I'm a true introvert. Like I'm a real introvert. ISTJ, like perfectionist, science, like don't, like that's me. And it's been very interesting to now find myself in an industry where I get paid to be out and on, right? But that's the opposite of really what I want to be. Like, to be honest, guys, like I'd rather just be home watching TV and having a cup of coffee on my couch, right?
Get it. 100%.
100%. So, to be honest, yes, I'd say one of the best things I learned from Wall Street is that, when you, at a very young age, they impress upon you the importance of being responsible for P&L. So I think one of the advantages and benefits that I got was just okay, you're 26, time to go find P&L. Like, wait, what? Like, how often, like, as a young mid-20s, are you being told, like, go network with people and find revenue, right? So they actually kind of taught us some of the very basic stuff in terms of networking and manners and how to do this and stay organized about it just on the street. And then when I started my business, one of my best friends is a financial advisor who was in a very similar position when he started his business. So he kind of gave me his system, and it was a LinkedIn-based system, and it was great. And we can talk about that more if we want. But it really was just kind of figuring out what your niche was and what was going on, and just kind of doing it. And I think the one thing that most people don't do, right? They sit down for a networking appointment, and you and I don't approach it this way, right? No. But like, most others will. We have a networking appointment. Okay, great. Like, how do I get business from you? Right. Or like, how much business are you going to send me? Or when am I going to get my first deal from you? Right? Networking is not a presumptive close. Networking is an open-ended. Let's get to know each other. Let's build a relationship, and let's see what's happening. The only problem is most small business owners can't think 3 months out past kind of where they are in life right now, because it's all make payroll, make P&L, pay my taxes, and so. What I've really tried to do is separate my networking from my sales activity. So network is business development, selling is selling, and those are different, right? So like, you sell to your database, but you network with your sphere, right? And so like, yeah, you and I have had sales conversations. I've called you, and I've said, hey, Jamie, like, who do you know looking to buy or sell? And actually, I don't know anyone right now, but obviously you're top of mind. Like, okay, great, thanks. Boom, that's a sales call, right? But that's only after
we have a
relationship. And most people want the me, now, and that's why you destroy networking.
It's interesting because I don't know if I've always been a helper, but I do better when people are in front of me.
Yes.
But as I create more relationships and do that extroverted getting to know people thing, and through the podcast and all of my LinkedIn activity and all of that, I'm constantly meeting connections for other people.
Totally.
And I think that's one of the big values we bring. One of the big values I bring is that my client base also gets my network, because I'm out there networking.
100%.
And most CPAs probably aren't doing that.
Well, we just had a phone call with a referral from a past client moving to town. Wife needs a job. And I was like, okay, well, what are you looking for? Well, I want this. Okay, great. Let's call it. We'll talk in a week, because I probably have 4 or 5 people already in our database who you could talk to. Wait, you do that? Yeah.
We connect people.
Like, my value is not being able to transact real estate. My value is in my network of 5,000 people in town that I can call and get help from, right? So, the question is like, where's your value and what are you doing, right? And I think the other thing that most people never talk about, right, is you sit down and have an appointment and you spend. The best thing you can always do is you always start the conversation. You always take control. You always take control of questions.
Ask questions.
You ask a lot of questions. You ask so many questions just because, and you pay attention. It forces you to pay attention. And at the very end, even before they're even able to ask you, like, oh my gosh, I've been talking for half an hour about myself. Like, I want to learn about you. Hey, before that's great. If I could meet or introduce you to one person over the next 3 months, like, who would that be, right? And if you or how can I help you? Or like, what's one thing I could do over the next 2 weeks to like help you move your business forward?
Or like, what is your biggest pain point right now? It could be anything.
Anything. But if you just ask that question, there's a 90% chance they'll ask it back, which is your goal anyway. And by the way, if they don't, that's someone you probably don't want to be doing business with anyway.
Yeah.
So I think just asking that question, like, how can I help you? And then you follow up, you make the referral, you make the connection, you make that touch, you write it down, and then it's just a great excuse, right? Because then we were just talking about this before we started recording, right? Like, hey, did you get in touch with Jay? Did you get in touch with Don? Like, oh yeah, cool. Like, we're talking, but it's just now whenever you talk to those people, like, my name will pop up.
You can check in,
and check in. Like, it's just is the best way to give follow up and to add value and to like create those relationships.
And be front of mind.
Be front of mind. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's always amazing to me. People seem to be taken aback sometimes when I'm like, what is your biggest pain point? And it could be literally anything.
Anything.
Like anything.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you need a babysitter tonight. Let me see what I can do. Right?
Probably know him. Right?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I don't. If you don't tell me what it is, I can't help you. And then people are always kind of just like, Or I'll ask them, what do you want? Like long run, like long range. And a lot of time people will be like, I don't know. And then like the next day they'll be like, nobody ever asks me.
Because it's tunnel vision, right?
Yeah.
You have a label as a CPA. I have a label as a real estate broker. Like, we're labeled by our job function, not by our job value.
Right.
Right. And so, I asked that question, and people who are not entrepreneurs or don't see the world the way that we do will say, well, I'm good, man. Like, I told you, I just told you I bought my house 3 months ago. I'm not selling it yet. I'm like, that's totally cool, bro. You're a trust and estate attorney. You probably want to know family lawyers or financial advisors or CPAs, right? Yeah. Because they're sending a lot of business, and hey, it just so happens that I know a bunch of them. Like, that's what I'm talking about, not selling your house. Like, you'll call me when the time's right. Like, I don't need to ask you about
it. I don't know what's broken.
What do you mean?
I feel like, well, especially like with the accounting field, I feel like we have a really bad PR job that's been done to us.
Okay.
Because people just assume that they can come in and, like, all we do is tax returns. Like, I'm going to come sit across from you, and all you're going to do is my tax return. And it's just like, A, we don't work like that.
Right.
And B, that's not really what we do.
Right.
It's not a product. I mean, yes, there's a product. We do tax returns. But that's because we have to. Right? That's the last piece.
It's about the structuring and the preparation.
It's about the strategy and the implementation and, you know, all that fun stuff.
The organizational process, workflow
all
around
of that stuff,
it.
right?
Right.
And then we do the tax returns to make sure you're in compliance with all those things we already set up for you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. People don't see that stuff.
They don't.
Right.
They also don't see me in the middle of the night like, oh, crap. What if we did this with this client? Right? So there's a lot of emotional and mental labor too, because I care about my clients. Maybe I care about them a little too much, but I care about them.
Well, I mean, caring too much, I mean, that's not a problem. And I think the really cool thing is, like, when you have that kind of relationship with your clients and referral partners, and, like, you get those moments, right? We're like, oh my gosh, like, I gotta connect so-and-so with blah, because how did I not think about that, right?
I just did that before we started rolling.
Right.
I was like, I haven't introduced you to that person. I'm the worst.
Right. But because we have that relationship, and we've, you know, you believe in the transfer of social capital. I believe in the transfer of social capital. If you haven't met Matt Stewart, the guy over at Northwestern Mutual, another unbelievable guy who believes in kind of the social capital networking kind of thing in town, like, you know, there's just something to be said for it. And it's going to be sloppy, and it's going to be
not perfect,
awkward.
I owe people intros, and I'm awkward because I'm an introvert.
And you just don't know these people. And it's like, well, I don't know if there's going to be a relationship here. And I don't know if I even want to know you in 30 minutes, let alone spend an hour that we have on my calendar, right? So, like, but hey, you just got to do it.
Yeah, and I found, like, I'll be dreading it, or I'll be looking at somebody's LinkedIn, and I'll be like, who is this person? And then I get on the phone with them or whatever, and I don't want to let them go because they're engaging and fun and awesome and right.
And the best part is when you follow up with those people, because you do, and you're systematic about it. Like, oh my God, Jared, like a buddy of mine last week said this to me. He's like, dude, I want to emulate myself over your follow-up. It's like, you call me every 2 months and you send me an email every month and you make sure everything's okay. You connect me with all these, like, oh my God, right? And so, like, that was a really cool compliment to get. And I can only imagine if, like, this is a guy who I have a great relationship with, we can be vulnerable with each other, we can be open with each other. I'm assuming that hopefully if that's what he's feeling and verbalizing to me, then there are a lot of other people who we're touching, who are seeing our content, who are seeing our activities that are thinking the same thing and just not saying it, right?
Yeah. And that's why I try to respond to the emails and,
of course,
and comment and stuff, because...
By the way, it is February and you are an accountant, so it's okay.
Well, no. Because the people in my network are the people that I want to continue to support and encourage.
Totally.
And it has nothing to do with me. But if somebody sees my name and tries to look for me and wants to get to know me because of that, then awesome, right?
Right.
But I still want to support people.
Yes.
And, like, if you send me a price increase email, like, I have a couple vendors that do that. I always email back and I'm like, great, thanks for taking great care of us. And people are like, wow, nobody ever does that.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I usually just get complaints or static.
Static. Like, it's just whatever, right? And, you know, it is.
But the feedback is amazing.
And
the positive feedback is amazing.
And you get that from, like, you know, it's the Pareto rule, right? You get that from, you know, the 80% of the people, or what is it, 20% of the people are going to do 80% of your business, and those are also going to be the ones that are going to give you all that feedback. And it's the same with networking, right? Like, you have unbelievable coffee appointments, like unbelievable, like, oh my God.
I need to go add mine up now.
We jive. We're the same person. It's like, oh my God, how did we not even know each other? Let alone, like, we're gonna do so much. We're gonna make each other rich, right? Let's go grab a beer in 2 weeks, and then just, like, crickets for years. right? I've had dozens of those. I've also had those appointments where I'm like, wow, that was the worst coffee appointment. Like, that person wanted nothing to do with me. They weren't interested in anything I had to say. They didn't want to share anything. And then a week later, we get a referral from those people. Right?
It's so crazy.
It's just crazy. So you just never really know. And if you approach the networking from the, let's just get whatever we can out of it. Let's just help a bunch of people. Let's build a name and a brand for myself. You're going to be successful.
Yeah, and how do we provide value?
How do we provide value?
All right, we can talk about this.
Sorry, yeah.
All
this is
day
like
long.
hours. I'm super passionate about that.
So I'm actually going to skip that one because then we'll just talk about what we were just talking about. So
They all connect.
Yeah, I know. How does that opportunity for real estate investment look in the Denver area?
Yeah, it's tough for sure. Real estate investment generally nationally is pretty tough right now. You have a number of markets actually in the United States which are in the process of correcting. So, real estate markets going down, both residential and commercial. So if you're looking on the coasts, there are certain things that are probably not working that have been working over the last 5 or 10 years. In Denver, it's really interesting. I think I'm not super bulled up on residential just because of the stuff we're talking about with apartment leases, maybe not topping out a little bit. Affordability on the residential side is also going to really start to become a problem.
That's the biggest issue.
Especially if rates just tick up a little bit, right? So I'm not telling a lot of people to buy, I'm not telling a lot of people to put money to work in residential because you just can't put that much money to work and the returns on that aren't that great.
It takes a while.
So, I think the best opportunity in Denver are probably some of these like sub-institutional commercial assets. So, you're talking kind of below 5 million, below 10 million. So you're not on the radar of those bigger guys with $100 million that need to put money to work. On the other hand, it's small enough where you're not playing against the big boys, but it's big enough where you're not playing against the riffraff. And I think there are probably some opportunities there. So, personally, I'm looking at selling my house that is currently my rental, and as well as another investment to go and buy an office building, because I think the returns are gonna be a little bit better, and it's just a better option for Blue Pebble in the future.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about properties for cash flow or properties for investment or appreciation. That's my concern in the Denver area. So if you're looking to buy property in the Denver area and hoping for appreciation, I mean, how much higher can we go?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, that's super loaded, right?
Because, we could cash flow a property, right? You could buy something if you could afford it and probably cash flow it.
Maybe not, single family cap rates are going to be around 5%, and your mortgage rates are 4%. Your APRs are going to be 4.5%. So, you're talking about unlevered yields 5%, debt yields of 4.5 to 5. You're basically going to break even on a new purchase. I think you're seeing more cash flow in office right now, in some retail assets, smaller retail, smaller office, smaller industrial. You've got a lot of the pot marijuana stuff that's kind of fallen off over the last several years as other states have legalized. So some of the pressure from that, marijuana users in the Class B and C industrial space has gone away a little bit. Really? I think that you're better off in kind of this smaller individual type commercial space and maybe not looking at residential for investment.
That is all very fascinating, and I'm going to have to rewind that back a few times and re-listen because you're so smart, and I got most of it.
I will happily introduce you to Rachel. She's amazing. So my commercial partner is spectacular.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes you're seeing in real estate purchases right now? And then we're going to...
Oh, boy. What are some of the
Give me the top two.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think right now. It's hard to say that people are making mistakes when there's no supply on the market.
When it's hard to not make make a different choice.
Yeah, if you've got two bad options and you got to move, like which one do you buy, right?
It's like a presidential election.
We're reminded of our South Park reference.
Yes,
right? I'm not going to say it on this podcast.
That's fine.
Not PG rated. I think the biggest issue is, the biggest issue for some people is they're focusing on the cosmetic, and they're firing all they're using all their ammo on their inspection negotiations on cosmetic things instead of worrying about the bigger ticket items. Is the roof okay? Is your sewer line cracked? Is your HVAC new or is it busted, right? Some sellers too, right? they're making mistakes about, well, my house is worth gold. I'm, no supply, people pay whatever. I'm like, well, yeah, but there's a cash issue here, right? Like if you can, I can put your house in the market and we can get it sold, but they still need a working furnace. And if you have a cracked sewer line, like that's going to have to get fixed. Like
and that's not cheap.
No, it's not. And we've had that issue. And so I do think it's probably more, you are probably overpaying right now, but overpaying in the context of what you were paying a year ago. Just make sure the house is in decent enough condition. You're not going to come out of pocket for, kind of big checks over the next 2 years. So that's the biggest thing that I'd be worried about. Not a lot of mistakes though. I mean, the market's just too crazy.
I'm just afraid it's all going to go down on red someday.
To be honest, I don't think, even if you saw a correction, it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like it's that bad here. You have so much pent up demand. You have a really, really hot job market. You still have a very hot in-migration pattern.
Huge job market.
Huge job market. Way more diversified than it was just 10 years ago. And by the way, construction costs are such that even if there were these huge developments coming up, you can't build it cheap enough, right? So like the big risk here at this point in the cycle, in my opinion, is not a leverage issue. We're not going to go through an 2008 situation where you have foreclosure. There's just too much equity right now. I think the bigger issue is like, well, where's the affordable housing come from, right? Like how do we get these prices to stay where they are? Because there's just no supply coming on the market.
Yeah, and I think, for us, we can't, if we were going to do a move within...
Why would you? This house is awesome. This area is awesome.
It needs lots of work, though.
I might be moving close to you.
Yeah, come hang out with us.
I might be your neighbor.
This is one of the best neighborhoods in the city.
Yeah, it is.
So we're going to have to wrap this up.
Am I too long-winded?
We could be here all day. What is the easiest way for people to find you?
Yeah. Our website's awesome. www.bluepebblegrp.com. I'm not giving my cell phone out. Like
you don't have to.
You warned me after I did it last time.
People are nutty for doing that. Did people call you?
What?
Did people call you?
No, none of you guys called me, but you should call me now.
It's on the page still, probably.
That's fine. Call my office, 720-526-2583, or info@bluepebblerE.com. That works too.
Okay.
Or just reach out to you and say, who is that crazy Denver real estate guy?
Yeah, and we'll try to remember which one.
Absolutely.
Final question.
Yeah.
What is your biggest piece of advice for someone looking to really relocate or move in the Denver area?
Yeah.
Manage expectations.
Is that bad? Yeah, that's kind of where my head went. It's going to be hard, right? It's going to be difficult. Depends on your price point. If you're below $1 million, it's going to be frustrating. If you're above $1 million,
most people
you're paying for that lack of frustration to some extent. So get pre-approved, get all your ducks in a row, make sure all your lender has all your stuff.
And depending where you're coming from, you're going to get a lot less for your dollars.
Or
probably.
More.
Yeah.
For me, it was 2 for 1.
Nice.
Coming from New York.
Yeah, no, I've always been in Denver, so it's just been kind of like, can we make our money back? Can we make our money back?
You'll be
make
fine.
our money back?
You'll be fine.
Right now, I'm just like, can I make my money and move to Knoxville?
Just manage expectations about the timing.
Someplace I can pay for cash.
For sure. Can I give a shameless plug for our fundraiser?
Do it.
Is that okay? March 19th, Jamie's already sponsoring part of it. We're going to be hosting a beer pong tournament for the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Denver at Revel Social, 6 to 10 p.m.
If you're a Denver local, hit us up.
Denver local, it's going to be a single elimination beer pong tournament, 64 teams, Wild March Madness is going on in the background.
There will be water in the beer cups.
Correct. It's water pong, but
it's
open
water
bar.
pong, but we're going to be drinking beer while
we're going to raise a bunch of money. It's going to be awesome. It should be an epic time. So if there are any questions, we'll send you that information. So
it's totally my thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Awesome.
Yay.
Thank you so much for listening or watching. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you prefer to listen. If you learned something and found some useful information to apply to your business today, please consider giving us a thumbs up and a review. Until next week, be abundant.